Well, it's unthinkable to think that they could be the source of the leaked emails that cost Debbie Wasserman Schultz her job. I can't imagine the NSA feeding Julian Assange this information. Could you?
Yes, and that's exactly.
You think they would actually use that outlaw, that worldwide criminal?
That is exactly what Bill Binney is saying. And
we would never do that.
Judge Andrew Napolitano to talk about all sorts of things. Judge, you know Bill Binney, William Binney, former NSA official, the architect of the NSA surveillance program.
Yes.
He says that the person, as it turns out, despite what the DNC and Democrats are saying, it was not Russia that hacked the DNC. It was perhaps it was somebody from the NSA who was angry about the fact that she was using personal email server, which violated what is called gamma material, which is the most sensitive at the NSA. Do you believe that?
I do believe it, and one of the reasons that there is so much anxiety, it's very interesting, and it's probably going to become an issue in the campaign. One of the reasons there is so much anxiety about Mrs. Clinton from the intelligence community is the belief that some of the materials that she handled with such extreme carelessness, I'm using Jim Comey's phrase, in my opinion it was criminal, but in the FBI director's opinion it was extreme carelessness, contained the names of American undercover intelligence agents, some of whom are no longer with us. This is the belief of a lot of people in the intelligence community. If Mrs. Clinton does become president of the United States, she's going to have a lot of antipathy towards her by people in the intelligence community. This is the tip of the iceberg.
But that wasn't in the report that people might have died because names were listed and sent, right?
Correct. Correct. The FBI did not reveal that. The FBI never revealed the contents, and quite properly, because it's still classified.
Sure.
The FBI never revealed the contents of the 25 top secret, of which 5 were SAP, meaning even FBI agents didn't have the clearance to reveal them. So Bill Binney is saying of the 60,000 NSA agents and contractors, there's a critical mass who fear Mrs. Clinton's presidency, and more likely than not hacked into the DNC
so the
and
NSA
leaked
has
this.
got him.
So this is
according to them.
This is a man you know well, Judge,
Yes.
and he recently did a radio interview where he explained essentially that. Listen.
If you had to just estimate here as an analyst who your best guess, what would be your best guess for who the hacker is, who Lucifer 2 is?
In this situation, I was thinking about how many other people have this data and hacked into the DNC, well as hacking into Hillary's server at home. I go back to a statement made by Director Mueller of the FBI back in 30th of March of 2011, and he said he got together with the Department of Defense and they created a technology database where he, as a member of the FBI, could go in with one query and get all past emails and all future ones as they came in on a person. Now, what he's talking about is going into the NSA database. So that means that NSA and a number of other agencies in the U.S. government also have those emails.
So what he's saying is there's this NSA database, and unbeknownst to us, because there's no oversight, the FBI, the CIA has access to it. Comey could have looked at Hillary's email if they had him, but then he'd open a whole can of worms.
Right. Then he would be revealing that the NSA, in fact, does have everybody's emails, which
and
a lot of us,
be a secret.
right, which a lot of us believe, which Bill Binney, a former NSA official who developed the software that the NSA uses, says they have, but which the NSA has never officially acknowledged.
Julian Assange was on another show yesterday and says they got a lot more damning Hillary Clinton campaign emails coming out.
Okay, this again is going to become a campaign issue because WikiLeaks and Julian Assange blame Mrs. Clinton for the fact that he is in exile in the basement of the Ecuadorian embassy in London. They also condemn Mrs. Clinton's secrecy, and they want to reveal what they have. And, Brian, I know you don't like this guy, but every time they have promised a data dump, they have delivered. Yes.
So thinking that there could be an October surprise, that is not inconceivable.
It is not inconceivable that they know exactly when. Look at what they did to Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Absolutely.
They know exactly the perfect timing to release these materials.
The emails which were exposed by WikiLeaks revealed a very strong bias on the part of high officials in the Democratic Party for the candidacy of Hillary Clinton, and a very strong prejudice on the part of the same people towards the candidacy of Bernie Sanders, even though such bias and prejudice had been alleged by Sanders and denied by the Democratic National Committee. It even resulted in the resignation of the chair of the committee as a result of a unanimous request from the members of the committee and the intervention of President Obama himself. But in order to get this issue off the front page, the DNC and the Clinton campaign decided to blame, of all people, the Russians. They accused Vladimir Putin of being in cahoots with Donald Trump and having his intelligence services hack the DNC to expose emails to make Mrs. Clinton look bad and thereby benefit Donald Trump. But the Russians had nothing to do with it, because this week, a 30-year veteran of the National Security Administration, the NSA, the domestic spies who spy on all of us all the time, the former high-ranking NSA official who developed the software that the NSA now uses, which allows it to capture not just metadata, but content of every telephone call, text message, email in the United States of every person in the United States of America. This individual said, guess what? The NSA hacked the Democratic National Committee. Why would the NSA hack the DNC? Because the members of the intelligence community simply do not want Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States, because she doesn't know how to handle state secrets, because some of the state secrets that she revealed use the proper true names of American intelligence agents operating undercover in the Middle East. When they lost their covers, they ran for their lives, and some of them didn't run fast enough and lost their lives. It's very telling that the intelligence community would feel so strongly about Mrs. Clinton that they would attempt to sabotage her campaign to prevent her from becoming their boss. It's also telling that these folks would break American law in order to, in their view, save it. Welcome to my channel.
WikiLeaks, and what's really important about WikiLeaks is that the Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans. They have hacked American websites, American accounts of private people, of institutions. Then they have given that information to WikiLeaks for the purpose of putting it on the internet. This has come from the highest levels of the Russian government, clearly from Putin himself, in an effort, as 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed, to influence our election.
Look, our government's not perfect, but imagine the stuff Hillary's done is so bad, they admit there's a total mutiny in the FBI. So William Binney hinted at this 6 months ago. He's been clear the last few months. He's been SWAT team raided before for just talking to Congress. But we now have the former British ambassador coming out 2 days ago saying it's the U.S. government leaking it. We have members of Congress saying that. Binney was the first to say it. Assange has come out in an interview conducted by the University of Dartmouth and said the Russians have nothing to do with it. So they're trying to deflect away from what's happening in the WikiLeaks and in other documents, saying it's the Russians. Clearly, it's not. William Binney, helped bring down the Soviet Union and was equivalent of a multi-star general heading up the NSA. He's not a Russian agent. I'm not a Russian agent. We're just patriots telling the truth. So, Mr. Binney, it's bizarre to get into all this, but can you speak to, before we get into what other WikiLeaks may be coming out, how you knew early on or sensed, or I guess had sources, that this was U.S. intelligence? But separately, I mean, what's already come out is so damning, and Assange says what's coming out next is even worse. What do you want to tackle first, sir?
It's good to be with you again, Alex. But I would say the thing that tipped me off was the fact that the intelligence community was not coming out and saying exactly who did it, because they've got control of the entire network. Now, when you do that, anything passing across the network, you know where it comes from and where it goes to. So there's no excuse for them not knowing. So that gave me the clue that right away it was not somebody passing things across the net or hacking in. It was somebody inside who had the data and took it out and then passed it on to WikiLeaks. That was the basic clue to me. Thomas Jefferson said it pretty well. He said, we're heading to collapse. The only two things that have to happen as a government, the only two things that have to happen is centralized control and corruption. And we've passed both those tests. With the collection of data on everybody, that's centralized power and control, and with all the corruption we're seeing now. And the WikiLeaks is one of the only sources we get that is exposing all of this corruption. But you're getting the sense now that some of the people internally, I know a lot of people in the intelligence agencies and the police are really good people, and they can't. This is sickening them, and so they're starting to revolt internally too. So, I think all of that is kind of summing up that we are now starting a revolt against this process of centralized control and corruption.
As an expert on criminal activity, I would say, formerly running the NSA, what do you make of this?
Well, it's pretty consistent with the people. The KGB used to do this all the time, try to entice people into doing things that they would be embarrassed about or would not want exposed. And then they'd use that against them as blackmail to convert them into an agent for them. This is pretty standard. This is what Bush, Cheney, Hayden, and Tenet did with some of the members of Congress. They roped them in, and then they were committed. And they did the same thing with the FISA court senior judge in early 2002. So it's very similar. It's the same process. This has gone on since humans have tried to organize into civilization.
So it's a system of corruption. The average person doesn't understand corruption isn't just people become corrupt. The corruptors get you involved in the corruption to expand it.
Yep, that's right. They'll try to rope you in any way they can.
Wow. Well, they were unable to rope you in, and you stopped them, and it's good to know, and it's been somewhat declassified that until you left and others left, they were not spying on the general public. They were doing it legally and lawfully, targeting governments, which is your job. Now it's completely wide open. Oh, but we're not safe, though. ISIS, they tell us, could strike the election, and they've brought in all these unvetted refugees. It's just crazy.
Well, they're setting us up again, aren't they? They're bringing in people who will attack us eventually, some of them anyway. And so all that does is perpetuate the fear-mongering on terrorist attacks. That means they continue to get more money and get to do what they want to do and keep everybody else in the dark and just keep them uninformed and manipulable. Then now they all can be manipulated any way the central power wants. That's what that power gives them. For example, in the Department of Justice, when they attempted to prosecute us, they fabricated evidence. And they put it in an indictment, and we were going to be indicted according to our lawyer. But since I caught them and had evidence of malicious prosecution, they dropped it and ran. But the point is, they fabricated the evidence, and someone in the DOJ felt so bad about it, they sent us a copy of their draft indictment. So we've got all that as evidence of what they're doing. It's no longer, as I keep saying now, it's no longer a Department of Justice; it's a Department of Just Us.
And as everything we've talked about comes out exactly as we said, our credibility is just exploding right now. There's a big meme on the internet that, wow, Alex Jones was right. But I just want to be clear. I wasn't right. You were right. Drudge was right. Colonel Schaefer was right. Cy Hirsch was right. I have all these major heavy hitters that are the top journalists, the top experts on, and they're all basically saying the same thing. So the American people keep saying, give us a better government. Our government's what's bad, but really most people in the government have gone public and said no, and the American people are too busy watching football games. So there's always this demonize the government, and sure, it's too big, it's out of control, but isn't it the people now? It's their turn to do something, because we've seen incredible heroism by people out there doing the right thing to get us the truth.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Alex, because you're one of the very few people in media who will carry these kinds of conversations. The mainstream media will not touch anything national security related, and they won't. Of course, they'll cover up, and they won't touch anything that's detrimental to the Democrats. Then they'll attack the Republicans. So that's their mantra. That's their whole operational process. But fortunately, we have you and some others in the media and radio and TV who will air this kind of information